Welcome back to the GSMC Hockey Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and we're back with our third segment of the night, talking about teams still set to make a big move in this offseason. Whether it's from trade requests that still need to be fulfilled, whether it's from what we're looking at with their cap space. There's a few teams that still have a lot to go. So we're going to talk about the teams that need to sell a little bit. A lot of teams are over the cap right now. The biggest ones, $15 million over the cap, are the Washington Capitals. This team tried to add a lot this offseason and still has some time to move around some pieces. But I mean, who are you gonna move around is more or less my question. Nicholas Backstrom has $9.2 million that are going against him. Evgeny Kuznetsov is going to call off their books because he terminated his contract. That's $4 million. That is, $4 million and 9.2, so $13 million in cap space right there. But that's still not enough. They still need to create some more cap space even with those two moves. So then what does it come down to? Well, you're looking at like John Carlson, $8 million, but I don't know if they can really move on from that. Other pieces like Nick Dowd could maybe get traded, $1.3 million. Sonny Milano has $2 million in cap space working against them. You have maybe Alexei Protas, but he's young. You don't really want to move on from him. They also just signed him to a 5-year extension. Dylan Strome is making $5 for the next 4 years. That could be a trade candidate, especially for a team that wants, a 27-year-old that can kind of fit with their time, kind of like a Ducks, kind of like a Kings, kind of a player that can help develop a lot of young guys but won't be too old when it is time for them to win now. TJ Oshie could definitely go get off the books. He's making $5.75 million. He's 37 years old. I think he is an LTIR candidate for this season, but there's definitely a move that needs to happen in Washington. It's just a matter of who. So, I mean, it's speculation. TJ Oshie, Dylan Strome, maybe a defenseman, maybe Sonny Milano, maybe a defenseman like Ethan Bear is gone. Maybe a defenseman like Martin Fehervary. I definitely butchered that last name, but I have no clue how to pronounce it. Anyways, what's good for this Washington team is they have like no money in goaltending. They have $1.8 million in their two NHL goaltenders, so that's really nice. But everywhere else it gets very expensive, and you're going to need to pay a goaltender eventually. Like, Logan Thompson is probably going to want some major money when he comes up in free agency next season. Whether he goes to the market or comes back in Washington, he's going to get a lot of money for it. So that's Washington. They need to move on from a lot of cap space, so they're definitely a contender to move around. Another team, but on the other end of the cap space, is the Anaheim Ducks. $20 million in Anaheim. That's a lot of money. $20 million. They're not planning on winning now, but Dylan Strome to Anaheim makes so much sense in my brain. This guy that's 27 years old can help a lot of these young guys in Anaheim and will be like 30, 31 when it's time for them to win. So you still have like 3 or 4 or 5 more seasons with Dylan Strome playing some good hockey where you could win now with him. I think that makes so much sense. And they have $20 million to work with. If there's a team that can take a risk on a guy like Dylan Strome, yes, he's making $5 million and he's not like producing at a $5 million level, but they have money to burn at this point. Why not? I mean, they could also help out the Vegas Golden Knights, but that's a Pacific Division foe, so I don't know if they really want to. But Vegas has a lot of money. We're going to be talking about Vegas now here. They have they're $6 million over the cap. That's scary. $6 million over the cap, and they have $5 million in LTIR that's going to come off their books, so that still leaves them $1 million over the cap. So they need to clear up more still. And like, who are you going to move on from? You can't move on from any of your like top 5 guys. And then when you look at their depth, they're not making that much money because they haven't been able to pay depth that much money. I think like there's two guys remaining on this team from the expansion draft. There's Braden McNabb and there's William Karlsson. William Karlsson's not going to go anywhere. He's an assistant captain. He has a no trade clause as well. And then Braden McNabb, I think might need to be the guy that goes. I mean, you have $3 million in him. So I think that the Vegas Golden Knights can still make a move this off. Well, first off, they need to make a move this offseason. They can't go in with this roster, with this cap hit. So they need to make a move. It's just a matter of when and who goes, really. You're looking at this team, and it's a good team. They still need to improve, though. And it's not... You don't have anybody blocked in the system, right? They don't have a good prospect pool whatsoever. But it's still... you just need to move on from somebody, right? You have so much money tied up in, Jack Eichel's $10 million, Mark Stone's $9.5 million, Tomas Hertl's 6.75, Alex Petrangelo's 8.8, Noah Hannafin 7.3 for the next 8 years. I mean, there's a lot of money going around in Vegas, and they don't have a lot of cap space remaining for a lot of money. So I would be a little bit concerned when it comes to Vegas. Another team that can still make a move, or will make a move, is we'll talk about them plenty more in the fifth segment because it is the team that I'm doing a season preview on today. It's the Columbus Blue Jackets. Patrik Laine needs to go, right? We've known this for this entire offseason that he is not going to be on the team come next year. Why is he still on the team? It's kind of a shock in Columbus. Well, I guess it's not like a shock in Columbus. You do need the right price for him, and a lot of teams are going to try to lowball you really early here in the process. So it makes sense. But he needs to move, right? He needs to go. You can't just get nothing for him, and he has 3 more years on his contract, and he's just going to stay in the player assistance program until he leaves. So, something's going to have to give here. And this is a huge player, right? Patrik Laine is a massive, massive piece in the NHL. One of the best shooters that the NHL has right now, and can definitely be a 40-50 goal scorer given the right opportunity, the right team. You thought it could have been in Columbus when they got Johnny Gaudreau, but there's just not a center on that team that can help support those two guys. So it's unfortunate that the timeline never really worked out in Columbus. It looked like it was very promising for a little bit there, and now, right, they're still pure rebuild mode. Probably going to be a lottery pick next year. We'll get into all this in the fifth segment, but you need to move on from Patrik Laine, and you need to get a return. And who's going to be the team that gets Patrik Laine? This is going to be the flip side of that coin. First off, Patrik Laine makes $8 million, so it needs to be a team that has a lot of cap space. Who would make sense here? Utah, Buffalo. They have 13 million. Buffalo might make a good bit of sense, but does Patrik Laine want to play in Buffalo? If he didn't want to play in Columbus, I can't imagine he wants to play in Buffalo. And then, the Detroit Red Wings kind of make some sense here, but Columbus doesn't love Detroit, so I don't know how easily a trade would get done there. It's also Steve Yzerman, and it seems like no general manager wants to help out Steve Yzerman because that guy is just a genius when it comes to trades. So really, where can you go here? The Blues, the Stars. Does he want to be on a win-now team? Because the Bruins have almost $8 million in cap space, so it depends on the return there. But I think it would need to be like a Mason Lohrei in return there, and I don't think that the Boston Bruins are willing to do that, right? So it's an interesting conversation. It's kind of a run around, circles here in a discussion. We've talked about Patrik Laine this entire offseason. We're going to continue to talk about Patrik Laine throughout this offseason because he is one of the best players in the NHL when he is, when he's on and when he has a supporting cast, like we saw in Winnipeg. We haven't seen it when he's been in Columbus, but Columbus just can't put a team around him. So, that's just what happens there. So that'll wrap it up for the third segment, talking about teams still set to make a big move. As the offseason's still young, there's still plenty of time here. But when I come back from my third break of the night, we'll be talking about the top 10 wingers in the NHL. Of course, this is going to be my opinion. So it's a subjective list, not an objective list. We can disagree on it, but we'll get into that after my third break.